excavated the other day. I didn't just go back out and poison again. The reason I was going to poison again was that I wanted to excavate later, but what had happened is an animal, person, I don't know, had dug out the area where I had poisoned, and it didn't look like a digging tool. There was not a sharp edge, so I'm thinking it was an animal. And so there wasn't a lot of activity, so I dug down about 2 feet by about 1 foot deep. And I never did really find a discrete nest. There were some tiny pencil-sized tunnels going through there. So I don't know if there is a mother nest somewhere in that big, kind of that large mound of dirt right there, that maybe back in there, but I'm kind of starting to think that whatever was in the ground was kind of immediately under the ground, because there was very loud buzzing whenever I got those 2 cypermethrin canisters in there to begin with. Right now, I'm kind of debating on what is the next step. I'm kind of debating on, do I just want to keep going and just try to wipe them straight out? Or am I going to take kind of a live and let live approach and just kind of cover this up and back out of there and just reroute my students elsewhere on our excursions? I know that was a nice protected place for these yellow jackets, but man, I was not a happy camper when I had students damaged by their activity. Anyhow, I'm thinking about this. I'm still kind of contemplating. In the meantime, I put some stakes out there and I put some hazard tape just so that if someone happened to walk through there, well, they wouldn't step in it and break a leg or something like that. So right now the big thing is to figure out what I want to do next. Complete wipeout or pull out. So the issue is, if I take a live and let live attitude, that there's just a few of them left, do they build back up? And then when they build up, do they colonize? So I think the thing that somehow tugged at my heartstrings the other day was that as I was digging and flinging the dirt out to the side, there were yellow jackets coming and diving head first into the fresh dirt and burrowing. It's like they were smelling their pathway home. Like it wasn't a visual thing. They were just smelling the hole and they were hitting it. It just wasn't a hole. It was just a bunch of dirt. And I just walked right over and stepped on them. And that's how I got the yellow jacket that I brought back here and put under the microscope, the one in the video, the one that we were able to look at. So, I believe that animals have a right to be on the planet just like I do, but just one sting is enough to send me into this same mode. It only takes one. And so, anyhow, I'm thinking about it. I'm really, really thinking about it. I know that they do good things for the environment. They prey on caterpillars and chewing things, and I know that spiders and things like that. I know they do good things, but I've got a picture of one of my students that had her hand swollen for 4 days after being stung. When I look at that, it makes me mad every time I look at it. It makes me want to go delete the yellow jackets when I see that. And so I just don't have a lot of patience for that when I see it. That's my dilemma. So the process of relocation is kind of out of the question for a yellow jacket. It's kind of like, I was thinking about this a minute ago, if there was a pit bull biting people as they were entering in and out of the building, what would we do? Would we kind of shoo the dog away and get bit while we were trying to do that, or would we call the animal control and they would take it and put it down? As a society, I think we probably pick the second choice usually, and especially if a single bite could make someone have an anaphylactic reaction and go to the hospital, and maybe even worse, even a worse result. Several days now, I have been dealing with insecticides, and insecticides can have an effect on humans. So that's the other part that I'm having to weigh into all of this is, do I want to keep exposing myself to insecticide as I'm dealing with these insects? It's probably why a lot of the Mississippi people just suggest the quick gasoline down the hole with the following fire and explosion. That's probably why people do this a simple way. There's a reason why people do things certain ways. But this is something that has to be considered. The location. If this were out in the country, not close to buildings, maybe an explosion and a firestorm would be more appropriate. But right now, I'm also having to add everything up. The risk of getting stung more times, and also the risk of exposure to insecticide. Personally, selfish reasons, but those are legitimate for me.